When it first appeared over the skies of France in 1941, this radial engine aircraft was a formidable and ominous foe to the RAF. Much loved by its pilots, and undoubtedly ranked as one of the finest piston engine fighters of the Second World War, it served on all the German theatres of war from the Western Front, North Africa, and the defence of the Reich. It formed the backbone of the Luftwaffe's fighter force, along with the Messerschmidt Bf 109, and it was versatile as a fighter, fighter bomber, ground attack aircraft, and to a lesser degree, operating as a night fighter. My name is Liam Smith, and this is the story of Kurt Tank's masterpiece, the Focke Wulf 190, or known by its nickname, the Butcher Bird. Welcome to World War Military History. If one person was to contribute to the success of the FW-190, that man was Kurt Tank. Tank originally worked as a test pilot for the firm Arbeitshaus Flugzeugwerk, but the company went bankrupt in 1929, and in 1931, under pressure from the government, the company merged with Focke Wulf. Focke Wulf's first successful design was the two-seat civilian biplane, the FW-44. Focke Wulf would eventually compete in an international air racing competition against the famous Messerschmitt Bf 109. Heinkel, Arado, and BFW had all opted for low-wing monoplanes, but Kurt Tank's FW-159 utilized a high-wing layout and a retractable undercarriage. However, the aircraft was plagued with several complications with the undercarriage, and it failed to win the competition. With the Bf 109 having ended service in the spring of 1938, the Luftwaffe possessed an excellent fighter aircraft. Having operated in the Spanish Civil War, the Bf 109 proved to be a formidable foe and easily outperformed the Soviet fighters. It was superior to any other fighter aircraft in service with the world's air forces at that time. But despite this dominance of the skies, rumors were abound of the RAF's latest fighter, the Supermarine Spitfire. It would prove to be on equal performance with the Bf 109. Thus, to prevent the possible loss of air superiority, the German Aviation Ministry asked Focke Wulf to submit design proposals for a new single-seat fighter aircraft. When Kurt Tank received requirements for the new fighter in 1938, he reported that the design features were based around the idea of a fighter that was to be more rugged than the Bf 109. The new machine would be a cantilever monoplane design with a robust wide-track undercarriage and an air-cooled radial engine designed by Bayerische Motorenwerk, or BMW for short. Kurt Tank stated, "The Messerschmitt Bf 109 and the British Spitfire could be likened to racehorses. They could outrun almost anything, but the moment the going got tough, they were liable to falter. I felt that a different breed of fighter would have a place in future conflicts, one that could be flown and maintained by men who only had a short training, one that could absorb a reasonable amount of damage and still get back." The background thinking behind the Focke Wulf 190 was not of a racehorse, but a cavalry horse. Over the next 3 years, leading up to the 190 entering service, Kurt Tank would produce two exceptional aircraft, the Focke Wulf 189 and the Focke Wulf 200 Condor. The FW-189 was used as one of the Luftwaffe's most prominent short-range reconnaissance platforms, whilst the FW200, originally developed as a long-range airliner, saw service with the Luftwaffe as long-range reconnaissance and as an anti-shipping maritime patrol aircraft. The first official Focke Wulf 190 prototype was designated as the Focke Wulf 190 V1. It was powered by an experimental air-cooled BMW 139 two-row 18-cylinder radial engine, which produced 1,529 horsepower. This particular engine had been developed from the 9-cylinder Pratt & Whitney Hornet R1690, which BMW had built under license. Here are some high-quality photographs of the 139 engine and the cooling fan. The propeller was a free-bladed VDM variable pitch unit with a diameter of 3,460 meters. To minimize aerodynamic drag, German engineers designed a special aerodynamic cull which provided only the smallest inlet for air, but increased the flow with a 10-bladed cooling fan behind the propeller. Here are a couple of excellent high-quality photographs of the double-hulb ducted spinner. The cull, which Kurt Tank and his team had designed, was drastically different to the NACA cull utilized by other countries. There were, however, doubts about the cooling fan's efficiency, because the air aperture was so small in comparison to the large BMW 139 radial engine. On June 1, 1939, the Focke Wulf's test pilot, Hans Sander, put the prototype to the test. Sander stated, "I have flown some beautiful aircraft in my time, but none impressed me more than the delightful Focke Wulf 190. Aerodynamically, she handled beautifully. The controls were light, positive, and well balanced. However, the temperature in the cockpit rose to 55 degrees centigrade. I felt as though I was sitting with my feet in the fire." In an effort to resolve the underlying engine problems, the V1's propeller spinner was replaced with the standard NACA cooling because test flights confirmed that air was being ingested, which caused more drag. Whilst the alteration helped, overheating from the engine proved to be an issue which plagued the 190 development program for the next 2 years. The second Focke Wulf 190 prototype, the V2, was the first to carry armament, as shown in this photograph. Mounted in the wing root are two 13mm MG131 and two 7.92mm MG17 machine guns. It was during the summer of 1940 the BMW 139 had been abandoned in favour of the more powerful BMW 801 radial. The first official prototype to be fitted with the BMW 801 radial was the V5. The overheating issue was finally resolved, but the 801 radial was a much heavier engine. To retain the aircraft's centre of gravity, the pilot's position was pushed back, thus reducing the overheating problem. Here are some high-quality photographs of the BMW 801 radial. What is really fascinating, and I found that many videos on the FW190 overlook this particular feature, is the introduction of a device on the BMW 801 radial. It is called the Kommando de Grat. This unique device was a very advanced mechanical hydraulic computer that simplified operation of the engine by utilizing a single power control selection lever. It allowed for adjusting compressor gear shift, mixture regulation, manifold pressure, ignition control, and adjusting speed control through propeller pitch. The pre-production model FW190s were converted to the more conventional NACA cowl that I mentioned earlier. With the pilot now further away from the engine, he was completely insulated from excessive heat. A 12-blade cooling fan replaced the earlier 10-blade unit. The propeller shaft passed through the fan's central plate. The V5 prototype only completed 7 flights before having to be scrapped after being extensively damaged on the 9th of September 1940. The first armament of the Focke Wulf 190 consisted of 2 cowl-mounted 7.92mm MG17 machine guns and 2 7.92mm MG17 machine guns mounted in the wings. These 4 MGs were synchronized to fire through the propeller shaft. For an additional punch in firepower, the outboard wing had 2 20mm MGFF cannons. As the war progressed, the armament would drastically increase in firepower. The FW190 possessed many advantages over the Bf109, such as a high canopy, which allowed the pilot to have an excellent field of view. The wings of the FW190 were shorter, which drastically increased the aircraft's roll rate, and the undercarriage was wide, which made it easy during takeoff and landing. The Bf109, however, utilized a very narrow track undercarriage. Over 1,750 Bf109s were lost to undercarriage accidents during the war. One Bf109 pilot, Ernst Mehren, stated, "In my opinion, one flaw with the Bf109 was that the undercarriage was by the fuselage, and sometimes during takeoff the aircraft would pull to the left if you were an inexperienced pilot. In comparing the Bf109 to the FW190, its undercarriage was on the wings, and there was a wider span." When assessing the two fighters, the Luftwaffe discovered at ground level the Focke Wulf was the faster machine, and at heights of 4,000 to 5,000 meters, it was almost as fast as the Bf109. When at extremely high altitudes, the FW190's performance fell off drastically, and the Bf109 became faster by around 20 kilometers. When diving, the FW190 could outrun the Bf109, but when it came to climbing, the Bf109, with its Daimler-Benz 601 liquid-cooled engine, was vastly superior. It took almost a minute longer to reach 5,000 meters, and roughly 6 minutes longer to reach twice this height. However, despite these drawbacks, the FW190 possessed a longer operational range, and when it came to maneuverability, it completely outclassed the Bf109. With its exceptional flight handling, the FW190 could outturn and outmaneuver the Bf109 at any speed. Otto Stamberger stated, "When the Focke Wulf 190 reached a height of 5,000 to 6,000 meters, it lost a lot of power. The British quickly realized these shortcomings, so they flew at heights to use the weaknesses of our aeroplanes to their advantage. When we went up to 5,000 to 6,000 meters, we had to use the compressor to get more power, to enable us to climb to say 8,000 meters, but at that altitude, the engine performance dropped off considerably." Other features of the FW190 included wings which were bolted together as one piece before the fuselage was positioned above. The joints were also concealed by an aerodynamic plate to increase strength and speed, unlike the Bf109, which had demountable wings joined to the fuselage by a single spar. The BMW 801 radial served as a massive shield during a head-on attack. The FW190 was also provided with an air-cooled engine, unlike the Bf109, which utilized the Daimler-Benz 601 liquid-cooled engine. The BMW 801 radial engine could endure a significant amount of punishment before having to land for repair. Pilots within the Luftwaffe on which was the superior fighter was all down to the matter of opinion.
I liked that 190 very much. It was a much better airplane than the 109. You could curve it, you could fly fast, high, you could practically do everything with that aircraft. Was wonderful. So only a handicap, what had happened with the 190, when you take that plane out to your takeoff, you couldn't see very much. So that very large radial engine took away your vision. And but you get used to it, so you be more careful. But flying that plane was a lot of fun.
FW-190 pilot Arthur Gardner stated, "The Focke Wulf had a very strong engine and in itself was extremely well built. It coped very well with being shot at, probably more so than the Bf-109. The Focke Wulf was faster at lower levels, for instance up to 6,000 meters, but above that, the Bf-109 was superior." Most of the dogfights happened below 6,000 meters, which meant the Focke Wulf had the advantage. It was more robust than the Bf-109, but some of the shortcomings were, for instance, that when dive bombing, because of the air-cooled system, depending upon the speed, it would open up and affect the stability of the aeroplane in the air. Sometimes the aircraft would tilt to one side, and you could find yourself in a helpless situation. You had no control over it, and it would be very difficult to right again. Not all Luftwaffe pilots were entirely satisfied with the new FW-190 design, even though the Bf-109 possessed a narrow undercarriage, which made it difficult to control and had a tight cockpit. It was still the first choice for many pilots. The BMW 801 radial engine would eventually be replaced by a liquid-cooled engine. To conclude this video chapter, let's have a listen again to the sound of the Focke Wulf's BMW 801 radial engine. The first variant of the Focke Wulf 190 that saw official combat service with the Luftwaffe was the Focke Wulf 190A or Anton. The aircraft was powered by a BMW 801 C1 engine which produced 1,540 horsepower and had a maximum speed of 660 km per hour. It was armed with 4 7.92mm MG-17 machine guns, 2 in the cowl and 2 in the wing root. In the outboard wings were 2 20mm MG-FFM cannons. By the summer of 1941, the FW-190 was introduced on the Western Front to JG-26 under the command of Adolf Galland. When the new German aircraft first appeared over the English Channel on the 27th of September 1941, the plane came as a complete shock to the RAF. The FW-190 completely outclassed the Spitfire Mark V, and after scoring several aerial victories against the British, it became known by its nickname, the Butcher Bird. The The FW-190's first significant engagement took place during the failed Allied Dieppe raid on the 19th of August 1942. JG-2 and JG-26 had converted to the FW-190. During the aerial battles, the two Luftwaffe units lost 25 FW-190s and shot down 61 of the 106 Allied aircraft. In the months following the introduction of the new fighter, the Luftwaffe fitted the later Anton variants such as the A4 and A5 with several modifications. These were known as the U and R variants. These aircraft were converted to carry a wide range of armament or equipment. Some of these modifications were 4 50-kilogram bombs with 2 mounted under each wing, one 500-kilogram bomb mounted under the fuselage, and fuel drop tanks for extended range. Others possessed more powerful armament, such as the installation of a 20mm MG151 cannon. This gun was considerably longer than the MG-FF, and protruded far ahead of the wing leading edge. With the additional equipment, the FW-190 proved to be an excellent bomber hunter and ground attack aircraft. One of the oddest variants was a FW-190 A5U-14 prototype, which included an LFT-5B torpedo. Only 3 of these aircraft were built. To give the torpedo sufficient ground clearance, the tail wheel leg was considerably extended. The FW-190 A4 to A8, designated with R6, were fitted with the Wulfgranate 21 mortar tubes, one beneath each wing. These were used against bombers. Developed from the Wehrmacht Nebelwerfer 42, each tube could launch a 214mm rocket missile, which weighed 110 kilograms. A time fuse detonated the warhead at a distance between 550 meters and 1,100 meters from the point of launch. This resulted in a lethal zone from the point of detonation. However, this weapon was to prove ineffective because its velocity was far too low for accurate timing, and it proved very difficult for the pilot to judge the range so that it detonated in the right place. The FW-190 for the next few months dominated the Western Front, and the RAF soon realized that the capture of an airworthy example was of the utmost priority. Then, on the 23rd of June 1942, a remarkable coincidence took place that forestalled a planned commando operation to bring an intact FW-190 back to England for assessment. A Focke Wulf 190A3, piloted by Armin Faber, mistook the airfield at Pembrey in South Wales to be a Luftwaffe airfield. Faber was shocked when he was taken into custody by the British. The British press soon arrived to film a propaganda newsreel.
Very interesting indeed. Something we've been wanting to examine for some time, the Focke Wulf 190. The RAF forced it down on the south coast of England, where an armed patrol promptly grabbed the pilot before he could do any damage. Now it's in the RAF. The latest German fighter to be met in combat by the RAF, the FW-190 is a good machine. It has a speed of 375 at 18,000 feet. A very intriguing prize. No doubt the Luftwaffe chiefs take a poor view of the pilot's failure to destroy it when he landed.
The capture of Faber's FW-190 enabled the RAF to fly test comparisons with a Spitfire Mark 5B. Sporting British camouflage, the captured fighter confirmed the RAF's worst fears. The FW-190 was superior in climbing, diving, and roll rate. However, when it came to turn radius, the Spitfire could easily outturn it during a dogfight. To counteract these issues, the RAF clipped the wings of the Spitfire. The BMW 801 radial was analysed extensively. Eventually, Rolls-Royce developed a new two-staged, supercharged and intercooled engine, the Merlin 61. This system operated on pressure alone, which meant that gravity no longer had an effect when performing negative G maneuvers. When it was fitted to the long-nosed Spitfire Mark 9, it drastically increased the performance. The Mark IX could outturn the FW-190 with ease, but it was found that the FW-190 could dive faster and avoid the Mark IX if attacked by flicking over into a diving turn in the opposite direction. Otto Stamberger, who flew the FW-190 against the Spitfire, stated, "The Spitfire was superior, but it all depended on which sort of technical tricks the enemy came up with, and therefore went one better. When the Spitfire Mark V was introduced, we were faster, and we were also able to fly very low so that the Spitfire couldn't catch us. But then new models of the Spitfire were introduced with newer and improved engines, for instance Rolls-Royce Merlin. So they went into the lead again, so they could fly faster and higher than us. The English would take our captured engines and examine them and try to copy them. After copying and improving the engines, they were able to make them more powerful, and they improved their shooting capability as well." The Focke Wulf 190A was a late arrival in the North Africa campaign. It saw operational service with the Luftwaffe unit 3ZG2, later changed to 3ZG10. These units were also provided with U and R modifications. In order to prevent the aircraft from ingesting sand and causing damage to the engine, a special filter was fitted to either side of the engine cowling. The FW-190 proved to be a highly effective ground attacker, and 3ZG10 were particularly successful. The unit operated throughout the Tunisian campaign and attacked a wide variety of Allied targets. The first appearance of the FW-190 on the Eastern Front was on September 1941. JG-51 was the first Luftwaffe unit to operate the aircraft in the Soviet Union. JG-54 followed soon afterwards. In one 48-hour period, at the end of January 1943, JG-51 managed to shoot down over 89 Soviet aircraft. During the Battle of Kursk, in July 1943, the Luftwaffe shot down 450 Russian aircraft. The FW-190 would prove to be a reliable aircraft on the Eastern Front. Its wide-track undercarriage made it more suited to the severe conditions, and it could sustain heavy damage. On one mission in mid-1943, a Focke Wulf 190 returned to base with 2 cylinder heads shot off. A few original Focke Wulf 190 Antons survived the war, including a Focke Wulf 190 A5 that had originally crash-landed in a forest near Leningrad in 1943. It was located in 1989 and was returned to airworthy condition in 2011 at the Flying Heritage and Combat Armor Museum. There are some awesome videos on YouTube of this aircraft flying, and I've linked some in the description below. Before I conclude this segment, I wanted to share some rare gun camera color footage of FW-190s and Bf-110s attacking formations of B-17s and B-25s. By 1943, the American daylight bombing campaigns had drastically increased, with the Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress and the B-24 Liberators. Many of the FW-190 units were withdrawn from other theaters in defense of the Reich. On August 1, 1943, 54 American B-24 Liberators were shot down during Operation Tidal Wave, a raid on oil refineries at Paleți, Romania. On August 17, 1943, in hoping to cripple the German war industry, US planners developed the idea of a dual-strike mission to attack two important targets deep within Nazi Germany: the Messerschmitt aircraft factory at Regensburg and the ball-bearing production plants at Schweinfurt. The Americans hoped to divide the Luftwaffe air defenses. Mission number 84 was a strike force of 376 bombers. Both of the targets were beyond the range of the escorting P-51 Mustang and Republic P-47 Thunderbolt. Whilst the bombing mission was a success, the unescorted bombers faced the full might of the Luftwaffe. 60 B-17s were lost on the first raid, and more were heavily damaged beyond economical repair. Almost a month later, another 60 unescorted B-17s were shot down in another crippling bombing raid. However, when the Allies landed in Europe and the B-17s were assisted with the arrival of the P-51 Mustang and Republic P-47 Thunderbolt, the situation in defending Germany from Allied attack took a turn for the worst. Protected by their fighters and tight boxed formations, the B-17s proved to be more difficult to approach, and the Luftwaffe losses were becoming much higher. By 1944, American strategic daylight bombing was putting immense pressure on Luftwaffe fighter defenses and targeting the main benefactors to the German war effort. To combat this issue and increase the production of the FW-190, Kurt Tank contacted various subcontractors by making the aircrafts in sections across various tiny factories and then fully assembled them at an airport. The Americans had a difficult time identifying these small factories as targets. Using powerful turbo superchargers, the B-17s operated at 13,000 feet. At this service ceiling, the FW-190 radial engine's capabilities were stretched to the limit. The Luftwaffe needed a high-altitude interceptor. The first of these designs was the FW-190B. This was essentially an FW-190 ANTON converted to consist of a pressurized cockpit and engine boosting. The new F-190 variant needed to use an inline liquid-cooled engine. For example, the Daimler-Benz DB601 utilized by the Bf-109. Various Focke Wulf 190 prototypes would be constructed with a shorter and newer, longer nose. This would eventually give rise to the FW-190C, a series of experimental high-altitude fighter prototypes powered by the liquid-cooled Daimler-Benz 603 engine. To accommodate the new engine, the aircraft's hull was drastically altered. Designed for the purpose of intercepting bombers and fighters at high altitudes, the FW-190C was to feature a huge underslung supercharger. Here are some rare photographs showcasing the prototype designated as the FW-190 V18U1 with a 4-bladed propeller. The bulge under the fuselage housed the turbo supercharger. The first flew on December 20th, 1942. Tests were proven to be unsuccessful. On the 26th of January 1943, the RLM cancelled any further development of the Daimler-Benz 601 in favour of a different engine, the Junkers Umo 213A, which produced 1,730 horsepower. One of the aircraft that used the Umo 213 was the Junkers Ju-88, a versatile bomber that utilized several different engines throughout its operational service. The Junkers Umo 213 was a liquid-cooled inverted V12 and used a circular radiator just behind the propeller. In contrast to the Daimler-Benz 603, it was considerably larger, heavier, and was in plentiful supply. In a bold decision that would drastically alter the development of future FW-190s, Kurt Tank decided to place this engine into the fighter. The end result was an aircraft design that might have well been the best piston engine fighter of the Second World War, the long-nosed Focke Wulf 190D or DORA. To resolve balancing issues with the new UMO 213 engine, the hull of the fighter had to be lengthened along with the rear fuselage and a larger tail fin. Furthermore, more components were factored into the design, especially when it came to coolant radiators. In keeping with his design philosophy, Tank used an AJA 180L radiator. This was installed at the front of the engine, and with its adjustable cooling gills looked similar to a radial engine. When the new FW190 prototype first flew in May 1944, the results were highly successful. The FW190D could reach a top speed of 692 km per hour at 11,300 meters, and it was faster than all other 190 variants. For a further boost in power output, the FW190D9 was fitted with the MW50 water methanol injection system, which increased the engine power from 1,776 horsepower to 2,240 horsepower. The D series retained many of the features that were present in the original design, such as the shorter wings, wide track undercarriage, and cockpit, along with the highly advanced flight control system. The armament of the first mass-produced D variant, the D9, consisted of two hull-mounted 13mm MG131 machine guns with 475 rounds each, and two wing-mounted 20mm MG151 cannons with 250 rounds each. Under the fuselage, there was room for a 500-kilogram bomb. The FW190D9 first entered operational service in September 1944 with JG-54. It was followed by other Luftwaffe units, including JG-26. One particular unit, known as the Staffel, was created in April 1945 and was part of JV-44. The role of this unit was to protect the Me-262s as they were landing. To help anti-aircraft artillery batteries in identifying friendly aircraft, the undersurface of the wings were painted bright red with narrow white stripes, leading to the nickname Parrot Squadron. Here is a high-quality colorized photo that I was able to find. The DORA would also see modifications in upgraded variants. For instance, the supercharger air intake on the starboard side of the FW190D11 was considerably larger than the D9. The D12 and D13 featured the addition of a multi-cannon nose cannon firing through the propeller shaft. The D12 carried the 30mm Mk108 cannon, whilst the D13 utilized a 20mm MG151 cannon. Sadly, there is little to no real archive footage I was able to find of the D series, except for a few seconds of very rare film of FW190D9s taking off from an airfield. I was able to find an original recording of a UMO 213 engine from World War II, which I've edited in with the footage for an immersive experience. Have a listen to this. There is also one example of an FW190D13 that exists today. She bears the markings Yellow 10 of 6 Staffel JG26 and was restored to airworthy condition in 2001. She was built 2 months before the end of the Second World War and was flown by Franz Gotz, who was the last JG26 commander in March 1945. When World War II ended, he flew it to an RAF base in Flensburg and surrendered it. She now resides at the Georgia Technical University in the United States. Since she is the only D13 remaining, this beautiful and rare machine is not flown. However, she was taken out for the occasional engine run.
I like the way the airplane's rocking on the struts. Yeah, that is. Come on. What did last night? And then it keeps over.
Come on, almost.
I wouldn't be able to finish this video without mentioning the Focke Wulf TA-152. It was also very difficult to find high quality photographs of this aircraft as very few were built. It was a development of the long-nosed FW190 DORA variant, utilizing the same engine, the UMO 213, but it was fitted with a two-stage supercharger. The difference with this design was that the wings and fuselage were lengthened. Armament consisted of two 20mm MG151 cannons in the wing roots and one 30mm Mk108 mortar cannon firing through the propeller shaft. The TA-152 also possessed of a pressurized cockpit which, like the DORA variants, enabled it to reach extremely high altitudes. The TA-152 was among the fastest piston engine fighters of the war, with a top speed of 755 km per hour at 13,500 meters, using the GW1 nitrous oxide boost, and 550 km per hour at sea level using the MW50 water methanol injection. Both of these systems could be used at the same time. There were to be three variants of the TA-152, the C, H, and E. However, due to shortage of resources, only the H variant entered production, with 69 being built. The aircraft first entered operational service in January 1945 with JG301. Only one TA-152H survived the war and is housed at the National Air and Space Museum in Maryland, United States, where it is expected to undergo restoration. The 190 DORA and the TA-152 came too late to turn the tide in Germany's favor. When the country was eventually occupied, American intelligence was quick to study these aircraft before they were destroyed by retreating troops. Throughout the course of the war, over 20,000 FW190s were built, and it goes without saying that the Focke Wulf 190 was without a doubt one of the finest piston engine fighters that flew in the Second World War. Thank you so much as always for watching. I really enjoy making these history videos. And don't forget to give us a like and to subscribe for more content. Until then, stay tuned. I'll see you next time.